Hello? How is everyone? Guys, I'm so excited. Good morning, Sarah. I'm so excited. Veronica, lots of people are joining. Oh my goodness, this is so fun. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to show a couple different things because a lot of people are new for the free Stitchalong. This is for the free Stitchalong, so we're not going to do the coffee pot one right now. It'll be in the video after this. So the first video at 10 o'clock will be teapots. And then the one after it, I will stop, save it, and then start a new video. And it will be this one. All the videos will start at 10. And then again, the coffee video will be right after, if you know what I mean. A couple things before we get started. A couple people have asked about captions. The captions will only be on YouTube and they are auto-generated. So that's why it takes so long for the videos to upload onto YouTube, because they're literally listening to every single word that I say and then putting it on the screen for you guys to listen to / read whilst you're watching if you need that. So sometimes you like your kids are watching something else and you just want to follow along on your phone, then those captions will be great for you. And all you need to do is just turn on the CC, the closed captioning, and they'll come on the bottom. For IGTV, there's no captions unless you upload it directly to IGTV, and that limits the video, I think, to under 10 minutes. So that's why I don't do that way, because these videos are longer than 10 minutes, so they get directly uploaded from the live. Okay, so the other question I had was, if I'm running out of thread, what should I do? So hi, Melanie. Mel. So what I've just done here really quickly is to do 6 strands, 5 strands, 4, 3, 2, 1. And all the strands is giving you a thicker or thinner line. So normally when I'm going to fill in an area, if it's quite a big area, I'll use more strands because then it will fill in the area quicker. If it's a smaller area, then I'll use less strands because all 6 strands will give a really thick line. So all you're doing really is just adjusting your strands to how thick or thin the line that you want to do. So if you find that you're running out of thread, you can always split your thread to 3 strands and it will be half the width, but you'll get double the amount of thread, you know? So there's a little tip or trick. So I thought maybe this would be useful just to see. And someone else said, how many strands do you typically use? I'm like, well, there's no answer for that because you need to choose the amount of strands for the area that you want to fill, if that makes any sense. Okay, other little housekeeping things, how to thread a needle. So lots of people have asked this too. I don't know how to thread a needle, or haven't ever tried. So don't go like this and just try and put it in because you're not going to get them all in there and you're going to have a hard time. I also don't like when you lick it. Not you lick it, but when I lick it, because it gets the needle all wet and it can actually rust on the inside there. So what you want to do is put all your threads together. And you're going to do this motion with your fingers. So put all of them together like this. And then put your needle right over where that is. And then push it through. So I've pushed all of them through. There's 3 strands here. Yeah? So again, you're just going like this, rocking your fingers back and forth. You probably want it a little bit higher so you can see where it is. So I start like this. Needle right over. Keep checking to see if you guys can see it. And then you push it through. So give that a try. This is only 3 strands, but it works with any amount. And then the other thing you can do is have a needle threader. So I only have one, and it's, I don't know if it's actually going to fit in this hole. let's have a look. So the one that I have looks like this. You can also get the ones that are wire, but they break really easy. So it's like a wire triangle. So you put it through like this. And then you put your thread inside of there, like that. Can you see it? And then you pull it through, like that. Now, if you have to use these, that's completely fine. Like, don't be like, oh my gosh, the shame. I can't thread my needle. I have to use a needle threader. It's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Do what works for you, okay? The last top tip, I know this first video is going to be a little bit longer, but it's an easy stitch today, so there you go. The last top tip I had is there's 2 ways to start your thread. The first way, this is 3 strands, okay, is to just pull the amount of strands that you want. And I can show how to do that really quick as well. Normally I just wait until like we need less strands. So each one has 6. I've already used this one to make my sample. This one only has 3. So there's 2 ways to separate your threads. The first is to single out the one that you want to pull out and put your finger over top. So you've got the 2 here and 1. I just want to pull 1 out, and you just pull it like that. So now you have 1 and here's 2. Yeah, so there's one way. The other way, this isn't really going to work very well. Let me see if there's a scrap, because there's only 2 strands there. So here's all 6. The other way is to separate, I call it the Y method, but only because it makes a Y. There's no real like proper name for it, if you know what I mean. So there's 3 and 3. So I hold some in this hand like that, and I kind of untwist and put my finger down and untwist, and you see it makes a Y. And then you get 3 and 3. So there's 2 different ways that you can do it. There's also 2 different ways that you can start your embroidery. So some people do knots. So you can do just a little loop and then put this behind it and put it all the way to the end. If you have less strands, I normally do 2 knots just because less strands, the thread is thinner and it can pop right through. And then you can start just like this with 3 strands, yeah? And then the knot stops it from going all the way through. Some people don't make knots at all, and that's okay too. They just leave all of the tails, so they'd pull it like this, yeah? And they just continue stitching, and then they do all of these at the end. So if that's you, that's fine too. To end, you can do a knot just like we started. Or you can slide your needle up under some of the other stitches, and that can help secure it too. So I'll show you more of that when we finish. The other way, the second way to start is the no knot start. So again, I have the 3 strands here, and I'm putting them together to make 6. So this only works when you can separate your thread, and you need even numbers. So like if you need 2 strands, then you would take 1 strand and fold it in half. If you need 3 strands, this won't work because you need to be able to take the length of your thread and fold it in half, and you can't take 1.5 strands. So there you go. And what you're going to do is line these up here, thread your needle. Okay, and you've got your loop. So you start stitching, and before you pull it all the way through, because obviously if you pull it all the way through, you're just going to pull all the thread out. You make your little stitch, and then you go in the loop and pull it tight. So now you have no knot on the back. Yeah, so this one you have a knot and a knot, and this one here you have no knot. And then you can continue stitching with your 6 strands or 4 strands or 2 strands. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. Some people will swear by doing 3, folding it in half to make 6, and other people will say, I just make a knot, that's easier. So you find what's easiest for you. I think that's all of the housekeeping, really. All of the videos on YouTube will be put up before the next day's video. So I aim to do it by lunchtime, but with David working here as well, it's a little bit difficult for the internet to cope. So there's that. Great tips, thanks. I know, sometimes I feel a little bit like, oh my God, y'all are gonna be like, we know, okay? Jesus, just continue. Just keep going. But I think it's important, especially because for the very first video, I'm not gonna do that at the beginning of every video. So this is where you need to listen to it. But for the first video, especially because there's lots of people who've never stitched before. So these might be little tips and tricks where they're like, I understand the stitch, but I don't know how to put the thread on the needle, Tori. So there you go. All right, so I'm using a hoop stand. It looks like this. You'll see the brick every once in a while because that is what holds it, hi George, onto the table. So normally you'd sit on this, but I can't sit on the table. So we've got the brick there to hold it down. If you're an OG Stitchalong member, you'll remember the soup cans that I had. And then I used to put 2 soup cans down there, and then my thread would like catch on them all the time, and like, such a disaster. Good morning. Okay, so let me just tighten this on here, and then we'll get started. So for the teapots, lots of people have been asking about watercolor and applique, and if you have to fill it in. Because it's such a big area, we're just going to outline it. So if you would like to fill it in, I would suggest filling it in first before we start doing all the flowers and all that kind of fun stuff. Meaning if you want to do an applique or if you want to watercolor paint it, something like that, definitely do that before, because then if you mess up, then you have a whole blank slate and you don't have to redo everything, you know? So we're going to do a very easy back stitch all the way around. You can do any color you want. I'm going to use black. You could do a nice gray if you wanted, if you have a gray kettle at home. Or if you want a colorful one, you can also wait and later fill it in with some of the stitches that we've learned, like throughout the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, entire month. It's totally up to you. That's something that I'll say a lot. Totally up to you. So yeah, this is how the anchor thread comes, like this. I like to put all of mine on these clothes pegs, but you really don't have to. Some people like the bobbins. I don't have any bobbins because I don't use them, but I like to put them on here. So you'll probably see a mix of both as I start to use them. I'll probably end up putting them on bobbins. And what I should do, what I don't do well enough, is I normally write and should write the number. So here, black, anchor 403. So I'll put 403. And then I'll put a little A on there so that we know that it's an anchor brand thread. But yeah, I don't do it enough. So there you go. That's why a lot of these will have nothing on them. And for regular stitch-alongs, it's really annoying for people because they're like, what color did you use, Tori? And I'm like, green, because I don't know. The other question I get asked a lot is how long do you have your thread? So I don't like continuing to like put the thread on the needle and having to do all that kind of stuff. So I try to make it as long as I possibly can without it getting annoying. But I know a lot of people like about 3 pulls. So that is like this. Yeah, so there's one end that you should pull from and there's one end that you shouldn't pull from. I'm going to try this one because it's hanging out. So it's 1. That's 1 pull. Yeah. 2, there's 2 pulls, and then 3. And that's a nice, good length because you're going to have some on your needle as a tail, and then you'll have the rest of it to be able to stitch with. So I think what we're going to do for this one, because you want a bold line, but you don't want it to be like boom. So I'm going to use 4 strands. So I'm going to use the Y to untwist. Hi, Kirsty. Pro tip, I always have too much or not enough. Yes. Okay, so normally I would use way more than this, but this is a good length to start with, especially if you're just starting out. So with the 4, I do not want 8 strands, so I'm not going to fold it. I'm just going to thread my needle and do a little knot on this end. But again, if you would like to use the folded method, then you need 2 strands and fold it over. Does that make sense? There's also a way that you can do a knot where you hold it like this and you wrap it like that, and then you hold this part and then you pull it through. I can never do it properly. And then you get a little knot at the very end, you see? I can do it again if you want, but I have to cut this one off. So this one, I haven't done this in ages. I'm surprised it still worked. You hold the tail, yeah, like this. Okay, and you wrap it a couple times, like 3 or 4. If you want a big one, if you want a big knot, then wrap it more times, obviously, yeah? Okay, and then you hold the knot and the tail with this hand. It's a little fiddly, that's why I don't normally teach this one. And then you pull the needle through the knot. It's hard to see, but you pull it through, and you pull it through, and you pull it through. And then it makes a knot at the end. Yeah? Or you can just make a knot like a regular knot. This is not a requirement. And I always trim it as far down as I can so that you don't have those extra little threads poking through. All right, let's start. I feel like I've talked enough. 20 minutes of talking, that's enough. So here we go. Let me just zoom it in so you can see a little bit better. I know black thread is really hard to actually see, so I'm sorry about that. But I want my thread I want it to be black. So you're gonna come up from the back like this and do a stitch. Now we kind of want all of the stitches to be the same length. So if you do a really, really, really tiny stitch like this, you're gonna have to kind of keep that up, you know? But if you make really big stitches like this, you're not gonna get the nice curves of your teapot, especially up here, okay? So you want small enough that it's doable, but big enough that, you can still get the curves and everything. The other thing is that because I'm using black thread, it doesn't really matter that much because all of the black of the thread is all gonna blur together. So for example, for this one, for the last year's February stitch along, all of these lines here, they kind of blend together to make one big line. Whereas if you have a lighter color thread, I don't have any backstitch with a lighter color thread on this one. But with the brick stitch here, you can see it. With a lighter color thread, you can see each and every stitch very, very clearly. So when you have a dark thread, you actually have a little bit of an advantage because if you do kind of make a little mistake or you think, oh man, I made that one too big or that one too small, it doesn't really matter because they all blend together. So you're gonna make your stitch, yeah, and then go up a little bit farther, and then you're gonna go right back down where you just made your stitch. So not here, because that won't connect them. You want to go right in the same one. Okay? And then up again. It's like a stand-alone French knot. Yep. Literally just like that. And then you just keep going. Forward. And then back down, the same one. Forward and then back. So hence back stitch. Yeah? Now there is a thread saver method to this. So after we do this for a little bit, I'll show you how it looks on the back. So you've just got your back stitch, 4 strands, and the back looks like this. So there's our first stitch going forward, and then all of the thread kind of doubles up on itself on the back because you're going forward and then forward again and then back. So the back should look like that. Now the thread saver one is where you go forward. Yeah, and you go back just like normal. But on this next one, you're not going to go forward. You're not going to go up here. You're going to go through this hole at the very, very end. Now this is really great if you're running out of thread and you're like playing thread chicken and you're like, ooh, who's going to run out first? The thread or myself, you know? Who's going to win? But it does look different on the back and it does look like you've saved thread. So right when I get to the very top, I'll show you at the back and how it looks. I do like starting with backstitch though because it's a very easy stitch and it's super versatile. So if you ever feel like, I don't know about this stitch, Tori, you can always sub it with a kind of backstitch. Now when you go up towards the curves, you want to make your stitches a little bit smaller, just to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Yeah? Now let's have a look at the back. So here's the regular backstitch, how it looks. And then here's the thread saver one. So you actually don't get that big long piece of thread that goes from here all the way to the next one. You just get it a little overlapping there. So it kind of looks like a running stitch on the back. And there you go. We're just going to continue this until your whole entire teapot is outlined. Now there's always little tips and tricks that we share like along the way. So my first knot. So that's always fun. A big thing for me is I always hate on black thread and white fabric when, great thread saver idea, thanks, is when people on the back go all over like this and you can see the thread through the fabric. So if you have a colored fabric, it really doesn't matter. You can just put your stitches willy-nilly anywhere you feel like it. If you need to make one more extra, just go for it. But if you've got white thread, you've got to be a little bit more careful about where you put your stitches and how you actually navigate if you're stuck in a place where you want to go to the next spot to continue stitching, but actually you're in a different area. And we're going to find that out right here when I go back up. Like this and around. You'll be happy to know, those of you who were here for the last stitch along, that the honky peg doesn't honk anymore. Only one of them does. So she's killed 2. So hopefully, you know, hopefully it'll be fine. So on the back here, if I wanted to go over here to do the bottom of the teapot, then you'd see that black line all the way. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, I really need to jump over, I'm finished stitching here, you can always go back through and slide your needle under previous stitches so that it follows the same line, so the front and the back will be the same. For me, I'm just going to jump over here and there's already stitches there. See? I need to come back here to do the very tip of my spout, and there's already a line of stitching there. So it actually worked out okay. I thought we were going to have a problem, but it wasn't that bad. But that's always good to know for later when we will do a bit more jumping around. And that way you can keep the front and the back nice and clean. I don't mean clean like we care how the back looks, because I do not care how the back looks. It's the back. That's all of your hard work that you can actually see. Like the mess of it, if that makes sense. So all of the backs of them, the front might look really, really lovely. But the backs, they don't have to be perfect. Okay? They can be a bit, and that's fine. You don't have to be, this isn't about being perfect. Do you know what I mean? You do the best that you can, and that's it. And we're not comparing each other to each other. We're just here to cheer each other on. And that's why I made the hashtag, because it's such a good place where everyone can share their work, and everyone's so lovely, like not just to me, but to everybody else. And a lot of times I'll go at the end of the day and go and make sure that I, at the very, very least, like everyone's posts. And I'll find that so many people from the Stitchalong have already been there and left comments and everything. And it just makes my heart so full, like, to see that everyone's cheering each other on and doing so well. It's just like, it's so nice. Someone left me a nice comment today and I was like, everyone's being nice to me today. I can't handle it. I can't take it. And I always screenshot them so I can save them for later. Just if I'm having a bad day, I can be like, people like me. Isn't that ridiculous? Hi, Twigs and Knots. It's been so long since I've caught a live from you. Welcome. We will cut the thread and do this little bit after. So you're going to want to take a piece of new thread and stitch that so you don't have those connecting points there. Not ridiculous. Thanks, Mo. I've had lots of people be like, oh my goodness, thank you for writing me back. Thanks for responding. Like, I try to share everyone's stuff if you tag me in your stories. And then I'll try to share more of your grid posts as well, because I know a lot of times people will make like a curated, you know, like make it look really nice and fancy for their blog grid posts. Okay, I'm going to go about 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to stop and do the other stitch along. Just because it's backstitch and I feel like you guys get it, you know? And are you knocking? maybe not. David's upstairs teaching the kids. And then I'm down here. And so we've got like the door closed, like, because it's pretty like open. My house is pretty open. We've got the door closed, and like he keeps finishing his schoolwork and then opening the door, and I'm like, ah, because I'm like watching TV or like stitching or whatever. It scares the living crap out of me. So he's like, I'll knock before I open the door now. Because, like, you have to remember, like, normally he goes to school, you know? Oh, my gosh. I really want to get to the very top of here. It's not going to happen, is it? Oh, goodness. Yeah, normally he goes to school. So I'm here the entire time by myself. And then having him here and, like, another person in the house is a bit like, oh. He's coming down now. I can hear him. I just want one more stitch here. That's all. Please. I just need to take it out. Being ridiculous. Okay, so on the back, you can either do two ways. You can make the loop and use your needle to kind of push it down. Or if it's really short like this, I like to take them apart and just tie them in a double knot like you do to tie your shoes, you know, without the bow. For the next video, I'm not going to do how to like do the needle and stuff because we've already done it for this one. And I think what I'll do is make a shorter little video that shows these things, and then I can do it that way. So I'll just finish the little squiggly and then stop and do the coffee pattern. So I've got my 2 strands from earlier, and I'm gonna do it the other way so you can have a look. So you just put like this, yeah, and down here's the loop. And then you carry on your merry way. Again, no knot on this one because this is the no knot method. Make sure you're doing smaller stitches, especially if you're doing the like the antique one. You know, the one that's like this. If you're doing that one, make them really small. Make your stitches really small, because there's a lot of curves in that one. So you want to make sure that it's not like boom, 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 like a zigzag. You want them to be nice, flowing. I have no idea what's going on. I'm watching it without sound in the baby's bed. It's still extremely entertaining. Aww. Well, you can always watch later. Yeah, that's definitely why watching on YouTube is great, because they do the captions. Sometimes they're not right. Like one time it made it sound like I was talking about my boobies or something. It was something about my boobs, and one of my friends was like, I don't think that this is what you are meaning to say. And I was like, oh my God, nope. That's not what I said at all. Hi from Pennsylvania. I just did a Pennsylvania embroidery for someone. Okay, so when you go to tag me, I'll share all of the tags in in my stories. Just make sure that you tag me with the Barmy Fox with a line under it. So it's like this. Do that sign in your stories, and then the Barmy Fox, and then make sure that it pops up with a line. And if it pops up with a line, then it will definitely tag me. Or you can swipe up from the bottom, and you can do like the mention, @mention. You can do it like that. So that's all right. Someone just said, would you recommend the whipped backstitch on the teapot? That's entirely up to you. For this right now, I'm only showing the backstitch because that's the stitch we're going to do today. So that's up to you. For the paid one, I am going to show both. So it just depends if you got that one or not. So fun. Oh my gosh, I love your handwriting. Oh my gosh, no you don't. It's like so horrible. Hi from Australia. So excited. This is my first embroidery. I can't wait to get started. Oh, so much fun. I love first embroideries. Like, they make me so joyful because so many of them turn out amazing. And people are like, I never thought I could do it. I'm like, I had faith in you the whole time, babe. So there we are. I obviously still have to do my handle, and then I'm going to go back and do this little line. Remember, you want to cut your thread and start there and there. Okay? So that's all for me today. If you're in the paid one, stay around, and I'll do another live video just after I save this one. Okay? So it'll be about 30 seconds to a minute, and I'll be right back with the other one. All right? So thank you so much. This was day 1. We did the backstitch, 4 strands. And yeah, tomorrow we're going to start drawing flowers. I'm so excited, and I'll talk with you then. All right, bye.